Welcome to this short session about the EV3 connection to HCP. So in this session I will just explain you what you can do with an EV3, how you can connect an EV3 to HCP, and the way I've decided to do it is through a .NET gateway running on Windows 8. So the first part is the EV3 setup itself. Actually, I just bought the Mindstorm's classical retail EV3 package, and yes, you do not need to do much more than putting the brick, the programming brick out of the package, put some batteries into it. There are 6 AA batteries into it. You do not need to use any Wi-Fi dongle here. You just use Bluetooth, which is embedded. So I'm not changing anything to the operating system, so I'm not putting a SD card with another type of operating system. I'm just using it out of the box. I wanted to do that to have the simple solution for everyone. So in the box you have 3 engines, 3 motors, and actually you have those 2 big ones. You have also a smaller one, and then you have 3 sensor. You have this touch sensor that I will use in this demo. So the connection is super simple. You have 4 ports for the sensors on the bottom of the brick, and you have 4 ports here on the top for the engines. The port here is for USB, so it's also possible to connect to your laptop through USB, but yeah, I found that something which is fully wireless like Bluetooth makes more sense. So that's the hardware setup. So let's start with the HCP setup. Actually, the setup of the HCP is very simple. The first thing I would advise you is to go on SCN and search for the Raspberry Pi setup, and you just go through all the configuration and the initial steps to get your HCP account ready for connecting to EV3. So it's pretty simple. There is nothing really particular to EV3. It's really common with other type of IoT devices. So once you are reaching the configuration of the device types and the message types and the devices, yeah, you just can refer to what I'm telling you. Actually, it's very simple. I have defined one device type, and this is the EV3 gateway. Actually, you do not have many parameters here. You just can put a name and whatever further detail you want to add there, but nothing very essential here. So that's just a device type, and you're not really using that anywhere else. Then you can define the device, which is kind of instance of the device type. And here there are a couple of important things. So here I've defined a test Windows 8, which is actually where I'm running my gateway. You can choose whatever name you want, just the name that you need to know yourself so that you can distinguish between different devices. So when you create it, you need to just give a name, so whatever name, and then you just define the device type. Okay, again, you can put a URL, that's up to you. Once you have created it, once you have created your devices here, you'll get a pop-up with a device token. So which is very important for authentication. You need to copy this device token, and you will need that in your gateway. It's the only way for any application to communicate with HCP. So if you have forgotten your token or you want to create another one, you just can click the here and you get the same pop-up telling you what the token is. So this is all what you need to do for the devices, and then the next step is to define the messages. So the messages is actually, yes, the type of container of information that will be sent between HCP and your gateway. Okay, so you have to define two types of messages, and you're pretty flexible on what exactly you want to send and to receive. It all depends what you define in your gateway. The only key thing is that you need to perfectly align between both. You need to align between HCP and your gateway. It's obvious, but I want to mention it. So I've defined two different messages, and actually I'm sorry if the names are not too good, but you can again define whatever name you want here. Actually, oh, I'm sorry, my session timed out. I'll just need to reconnect. Just 1 second. It's coming up. So actually, you can define two types of messages. You can either send messages from HCP to the gateway. This is also called push notification, and you can just also receive message. So on the HCP perspective, receiving message means getting information from the sensors. So that's the other way. And this direction is something that you define here. So is from device and to device. I didn't use bidirectional just because the structure, the message structure between sending and receiving could be different. Okay, so that's just the reason why I define two different, but if you have the same message structure, you could use the same without any problem. So again, you need to enter a name, device type, so which device is it referring to, and then the direction. So here, so I will cancel this here, and then I will go here. So the important thing here is first the message ID. This is again something you need to note so that you can send the messages, and you need to define the fields. In this case here, this is from the device to HCP, and what I've defined is two fields. One is a timestamp, so at what time exactly did the event happen, and the second thing is the value of the sensor. You can do much more complicated things. You can put different sensors at the same time. You can really adjust things as you want, and it will depend what you want to do with the information. Or do you want to display it in HCP? So what do you want to do with the information is the most important thing you need to define before even jumping into the parameters here. Then the next one that I've defined here is actually a test to try out HCP sending notifications to the gateway so that we can have direct actions there. And that's really, as you can read here, to device. This is actually from the HCP to the device. And here in this case, I just said, let's make it very simple. You could actually create one type of message per a type of action running on the EV3. Just for instance, you could say, hey, I want a special action for turning one engine or whatever. You can just decide that. But here I just wanted to make it very flexible and say, okay, let's have just an action and define an action ID, and that's it. So that's about the configuration, which is a little bit specific to EV3. Apart from that, there is nothing else which is specific. Okay, so I'm back now on the cockpit, and what I would like to do is to show how we can interact between the EV3 and HCP. So let's go to the MMS cockpit. Okay, so let's go here. Okay, so here what you can do is to look at the stored message, the messages which have been sent by the EV3, for instance, or any other devices to HCP. And here, this one you can use to test the sending of messages from HCP to devices like EV3. So let's go to this one here, and let's go to this table which corresponds to the device that I've defined for the EV3. So at the same time, let's look here. So what I will do is just press this button here. Okay, so let's press the button, and now let's refresh the table here. What you see is that we just see that I've pressed on it. Okay, so it's a very simple event, but you see that it works, and it looks very quick. Actually, it's nearly instantaneous. Okay, so it's true that we need to refresh, but it's nearly instantaneous. So here I use this very simple press button thing, but there are other types of sensors and they are all working the same way. The only thing obviously is to understand, yes, when do we need to really send information to HCP? I think this is the most important thing, is when. Okay, so that's just showing you that, yeah, we can send this type of information to HCP. So now let's do the contrary. Let's try to push information, to push commands from HCP to EV3. So let's go to this service here, so the push service. And actually here you see you need a couple of things. So we'll use HTTP. So we have another option that I'm not using, but I'm using HTTP. So the sender is to me not very important. So let's say it's the IoT app. I am not using this information in the gateway. But what is important is the device ID, which needs to be a valid device ID. To which you want to send the information. It needs to know to which device we send information, and this was defined in HCP earlier. So I will just paste it here. That's the device ID that has been defined. And then the next thing is actually to also take the message ID, which has also been defined earlier in the HCP cockpit. When you define the message to device, you remember there was from and to. Let's take this message type here that we will paste here. Then obviously it's important that we match here the definition. And you remember there are some fields that you need to define when you define a message type, and this must just match the definition. And if you remember, so for to device, I define only one field, which is action. Okay, so now we are ready to go. So what I will do is, in a nutshell, send to this device this message action 01. So let's try that. What do we see? It's great. You see that when I do that, both motors, both engines are just moving. Look at that. So it works. Oh, sorry. I mean, maybe it's better like that. Okay, I will do it once more. see. So it's obviously possible to define very complex commands to send to the EV3, but yes, I will just show you another one, and the way I've implemented in the gateway is pretty simple and very, very flexible. So let's try action 02 that I defined in the gateway, and what you see is actually only one engine, but at a faster speed. That's actually action 2. So in this, what we have seen is how to send messages with push services from HCP, and how to get messages from the EV3 to the HCP platform. So what's in this gateway? Actually, yeah, it's using a simple API to connect through Bluetooth to the EV3, so it's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. I developed it in .NET, and actually VB.NET to make it even easier. There are not that many example or samples on the net for VB.NET. There are a couple for C#, but still, I mean, it's so straightforward. It doesn't mean that you can do it. It's I think the easiest way to program your Mindstorm. So what has been developed so far is just a very, very well prototype. We can do much better than that, but at least, yeah, it has a merit to work. On the left side, we define a couple of settings and different parameters to connect to the HCP part. So you need your account ID. Then the device ID is actually device ID for your gateway, and the token. If you remember, I told you need to note it and you need to paste it. And actually, you need to paste it here. It's being used for the connection, so for the authentication when you make connection and you send a HTTP post or HTTP GET. And then here, yes, we can also test a couple of things directly, without the EV3. So that's this part of the window. You can also test receiving push notifications. So that's the HCP connectivity. On the right, we have a couple of things, a couple of tests that we can do to ensure the connection between the gateway and the EV3 itself. And then here, yes, we can define if we want to receive the message and act on the message, and if we want to send what is sent through the sensor. It's totally clear. We can do much better than that. It's just a very quick prototype. On the log, you see the messages you got from the from HCP, the push notifications, and here you see when you press on the touch thing. So let's just push here. You see, yes, I've pushed on the sensor, and you see that here, yes, obviously we can check on HCP, but it's clear that as we send the sensor message to HCP, well, that's this message 1 will be sent over. So, and every time I press on the sensor, we'll get this behavior. Okay, so that's about that. So now, in terms of programming, very simple thing. So we have an event here, so which is called onBreakChanged, so which is triggered when there is any change on the EV3. So sometimes it's not very easy to control. So that's why I put this additional condition to act on sending something on HCP. So that's the function I call call-cloud, which is actually sending the information to HCP through, actually we can go directly to here, so through a post HTTP function. It's very simple. The only thing is that here you do not need to forget to put in the headers the authorization, and this actually there is a kind of predefined naming convention. You need to put bearer, and then you need to put your token, the token that you got from HCP. So that's about it. And then here you find back a couple of fields that are required by HCP. So the mode, the message type, and that's actually the message ID that you defined and that you get from HCP, and then here the actual message you want, and this is based on the fields that you need to send. In our case, if you remember, this was the timestamp and then the field 1, so that's what we are sending. So that's actually one of the main functions. Then here we have the receiving part, which actually is just a function which will return what we get if we get anything. Okay, so actually HCP is working in such a way that if there is nothing in the queue to be sent, well, it just returns an empty string, and that's something you need to handle obviously here, and that's what I am doing here with a timer function. I just take a timer with interval of 1 second. We can do it every 2 seconds, every 10 seconds, whatever. That's yeah, you can define by the year. I put it every second that I'm checking, and if actually we have more than nothing, and that would be nothing, then we actually start an action. Start an action is actually an action on the EV3 directly. And you see here that I've defined the actions that I want to start. So I have case 01, and that's actually, if you remember, 01 is what we send as action, okay, from the push notification service. And if I get that, well, I need to have 2 motors running at 20% of the speed, and then I just let it run for 2 seconds, and then I stop it. So very simple again, and then I just want to make another one where you put at 60% of the power, but this only on one motor. So that's the type of thing that you can do. You can do whatever you want. Obviously, the programming is exactly the same there than you would have in Java or directly with the application from Lego. It's exactly the same. It's the same type of command, the same types of parameters. So that's, I think, the main part of the programming. So pretty simple. You see, not that many complex parameters or yeah. So maybe the last thing I want to show is just the connection. So yeah, here I'm making the connection on COM3. This is coming actually from the Bluetooth connection. You need to check on the control panel Bluetooth, and then you find your device. But let me show you here. So here is my EV3 that is connected, and then you just go to Properties, Services, and then you see that it's running on COM3. Okay, so that's important. It's totally possible to have multiple EV3 connected to one gateway. It should be absolutely no problem, and you could definitively keep only one gateway, one device ID. That's possible, or you can create different device IDs for the different EV3s. That's something you can also do. I don't see the need, because yeah, it's just you can have 20 EV3s and say, okay, with the 20 I just have one gateway, and I control everything with one gateway, and then I have only one virtual device ID. That's something which would work as well. That's not a problem. Okay, so that's the definition that you need to do, and then to start the synchronization, you just need to call connect async and put an await there, because sometimes it takes 1 or 2 seconds before the connection is established, and you do not want that user is launching commands before the connection is there, otherwise it will throw some error. Obviously, there is still a lot of error catching things that needs to be added here, but that's for next step. Here we are only on the prototype level. So that's what I want to share. So pretty simple again. Yes, would you have questions, contact me. I'm Laurent Devoud, and you can contact me over email laurent.devoud@sap.com. Thank you. Bye-bye.